My mom looked right at me and said, "You're a nobody, so stop pretending like you matter." Then my brother chimed in, real casual, "Honestly, half the time we forget you even exist." So I picked up my fork, tapped it gently against my glass, and said, "This'll just take a minute, 3 sentences, tops." By the time I hit the second sentence, my mom had gone ghost white. I didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't even blink. See, when you grow up around people like mine, you learn pretty quick to wear your face like a damn suit of armor. You teach yourself not to react, or at least not in any way they can twist and throw back at you later. And yeah, that's how brunch kicked off. They call it brunch, but, let's be real, it's just Sunday lunch with some watered-down mimosas and an extra helping of judgment. The food might change week to week, but the attitude sure doesn't. We were halfway through choking down some brutally dry quiche when my mom decided it was time for her usual performance review. She treats these family meals like they're corporate evaluations, except funny thing, I never applied for the damn job. "You're a nobody," she said again, tossing it out there like she was talking about the weather. "Don't act like you matter." And Nick, my younger brother, whose biggest achievement so far is managing to breathe in Wi-Fi range, added, "Honestly, we barely remember you're around most of the time." He laughed like it was the best joke he'd ever heard, like we were all supposed to be in on it. I didn't even crack a smile. I just reached for my glass, tapped the side with my fork, and said again, real calm, "This won't take long. Just 3 sentences." They both froze, forks halfway to their mouths. "Please," I said. "Framing Dad. This copy's for you." Then I pulled out a plain black folder from my bag and slid it across the table, nice and easy. No big speech. No fireworks. Just a little nudge over the fancy tablecloth. Nick looked at it like he thought I was handing out resumes. Grant, the guy my mom married when I was 15 and who I stopped calling Dad the second the paperwork went through, leaned in like he thought it might be concert tickets. But my mom? She didn't budge. Just sat there, staring. Finally, she reached out, picked up the folder, and opened it. First page. Then second. Then third. And I sat back and watched her face change, slow as a train wreck. It was like watching someone realize the brakes are out and there's a wall coming up fast. Her hands started to tremble. Mark's smug little smirk drained right off his face. Nick froze, his fork hanging in midair like he was debating whether to keep eating or make a break for it. When she hit the last page, my mom muttered, almost too quiet to hear, "You little scoundrel." Grant shoved back his chair with a loud scrape and stood up, pissed. "You said you deleted that stuff," he barked. I stood up too, brushed the wrinkles out of my sweater, grabbed my bag. "The originals are already somewhere safe," I said, cool as ice. "This copy's just for your personal entertainment." And with that, I turned and walked out the door. Now, let's back up a bit. Technically, I'd moved back in with them about 3 months before that charming little brunch. Told them I couldn't afford my apartment anymore. Told them I needed a hand. I was playing the part of the struggling kid. My mom said yes, but made it crystal clear she expected rent, chores, and absolutely no attitude. Meanwhile, Nick, still living at home, by the way, wasn't paying a dime. No rent, no bills, not even taking out the trash. The guy's biggest contribution was a mountain of dirty dishes and a steady stream of unwanted opinions. They didn't even give me the guest room or my old room. Nope, I got the laundry room. Still had the damn dryer in there, rattling at night like some pissed-off ghost. Every time the walls shook, I'd just tell myself, hang in there. Just a little longer. Find what you came for. Because I wasn't there to reconnect. And I sure as hell wasn't there because I had nowhere else to go. I was there because I knew, deep down, they were hiding things they never expected me to find. And I planned on finding every last one of them. But you wouldn't have guessed any of that if you saw me at brunch. I poured the orange juice. I passed the butter. I even laughed at Mark's half-assed jokes about millennials not knowing how to do laundry, pretty rich, considering I was the one doing his. I said thank you when my mom handed me a napkin like she was bestowing some great honor. Nobody asked how my job was going. Nobody asked what I was working on. The closest I got to any real conversation was, "You still driving that tiny car?" For Christmas, they gave me a mug that said, "Somebody's favorite daughter." Which was hilarious, because I'm 99% sure they bought it that morning. Nick, meanwhile, scored a brand new smartwatch and a trip to Cancun. For his mental health, apparently. I got to vacuum the staircase. So, yeah. That moment at brunch? It wasn't exactly premeditated. But when the time came, I was ready. And when I saw my mom's face drain of color. When I saw Grant glance at the door, calculating whether he could make a run for it. When I saw Nick finally shut up for once in his life. I knew I had hit the nerve I was aiming for. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to cause a scene. All I had to do was tell the truth. And trust me, I wasn't anywhere close to done yet. You know how some folks talk about their childhood like it was one big sitcom? Inside jokes, weird family traditions, embarrassing birthday party stories that turn into laughs later on? Yeah. That wasn't mine. Growing up, my life was less Full House and more Survivor, except no prize money at the end. On the outside, we looked normal enough. Holiday cards with awkward, forced smiles. Family vacations that made it into scrapbooks no one ever opened. A fridge full of Nick's god-awful finger paintings like he was the second coming of Picasso. But behind closed doors? It was like being stuck in a group project where I did all the work, and still got blamed when things fell apart. Nick was the golden boy. He could smash a lamp and get praised for being spirited. Meanwhile, I once spilled a cup of juice and got sent to my room for being careless and dramatic. After a while, I honestly started wondering if they just forgot I existed. I remember this one day, I was 9, came home from school grinning ear to ear because I'd won a little art contest. Nothing huge, just a cheap certificate, but it meant something to me. I showed it to my mom, all proud. She barely glanced at it before saying, "You really should spend more time on science. Art's not gonna get you anywhere," my mom said like it was some universal truth. That same week, Nick brought home a participation ribbon for Best Listener. She framed it. Put it on the wall like he'd won the Nobel Prize. It's that kind of stuff that chips away at you, you know? Not all at once, but slow, so slow you barely notice until you're half the person you used to be. You start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you are less interesting. Less likable. Less worth it. The only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't invisible was my dad. He wasn't flashy. He didn't make big speeches or try to play super dad. He just showed up. Helped with homework. Made grilled cheese sandwiches that honestly belonged in a museum. Listened to me ramble about whatever book I was into and, crazy thing, actually remembered what I said later. He was steady. Quiet. Safe. I never really understood why my mom always seemed so pissed off just being around him. Like his breathing somehow personally offended her. But the way she treated him, yeah, same way she treated me. And looking back, well, that explains a lot. I didn't question it back then. Not until the day everything cracked wide open. I was 12. Sitting in the living room, half-heartedly eating stale popcorn and watching a show I wasn't even paying attention to. Nick was upstairs, probably wrecking something. Mom was glued to her phone. Then she clicked off the TV and said she needed to show me something important. Which, by the way, is never how good news starts. She scrolled through her messages, shoved the phone in my face, and said, "This is from your father. You need to see what kind of man he really is." It was just one line. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." I remember staring at the screen, my brain short-circuiting. Like, I could read the words, but they just didn't compute. Mom launched right into her speech, said he was dangerous, said she'd always known there was something wrong with him, said she was filing for full custody to keep me safe. She rubbed my back like she was the hero in some movie, the one saving the kid from the villain. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there, feeling like someone had yanked the floor out from under me, and I was still stuck in the free fall. Then came the court stuff. The new rules. The endless silence. No phone calls. No visits. No, we'll work this out. Just gone. My dad, erased like somebody edited him out of my life without even a goodbye. And I was supposed to be grateful. Mom called it the rebuilding years. Which is hilarious, because she didn't rebuild a damn thing. She just rearranged the control panel so she had tighter control. I became her emotional punching bag. Her free live-in maid. The kid she didn't want but needed to manage for appearances. Meanwhile, Nick? He got louder. Meaner. Lazier. I learned how to disappear. Mom stopped pretending we were a family. It became obvious real quick, I was there because she didn't want the bad PR of dumping her daughter on the man she'd painted as unstable. But the love? The softness? The basic decency you should be able to expect from your own mother? Gone. And honestly, after a while, I didn't think much about my dad. Not really. I shoved him into a mental box labeled dangerous and nailed it shut. But some things don't stay buried. Especially not the things that never made sense to begin with. There were too many cracks. Too many moments when someone would talk about their dad, and I'd feel this weird, sharp ache, like I was mourning someone no one else even remembered existed. And that text? The one my mom showed me? It just never sat right. My dad wasn't that guy. He was the guy who got choked up watching Finding Nemo. The guy who apologized if he raised his voice even a little. The guy who told me he loved me every single time we talked. But I didn't say any of that out loud. Because here's the thing, if you start picking at one lie, you gotta be ready to question all of them. And I wasn't there yet. Not then. Fast forward a few years into my 20s. That ache in my chest got louder. The questions got heavier. Until finally, one night, I did something reckless. I picked up my phone and texted a number I wasn't even sure still worked. *Hi. I don't know if this is still your number. But I just wanted to say hello. Nora*. 15 minutes later, he texted back. And just like that, the whole world shifted. I never went back. Not after brunch. Not after I slid that folder across the table and watched my mom's face do that half-crumple thing where pride wouldn't let her break down completely. I walked out without a second glance. Didn't bother taking leftovers. Didn't even grab my coat. It wasn't that cold anyway. And honestly, the dramatic walkout meant more to me than having sleeves. I booked a short-term rental under a fake last name. Nothing flashy. Just low-key enough to let the dust settle without anyone tracking me down right away. 2 hours later, my brother texted. "What the hell did you just do?" Then, Mom's freaking out. "Mark's losing it. They won't tell me what's happening." I left him on read. Not because I couldn't think of anything to say, but because for once, I didn't feel like saying anything at all. Let them stew. Let them sit there in their perfect little house, sweating through their khakis, trying to figure out how everything they'd built on lies just went up in smoke. I wish I could say this was all part of some master plan from day one. But truth is, it started with a gut feeling and a really bad night. I was 23. Lying awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that message. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." The words that made me cut my dad out of my life without question. The words that made me scared of my own memories. But the older I got, the harder it was to swallow. My dad was the guy who made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. The guy who used phrases like safety first, and actually meant them. He wasn't the type to send violent threats over text. So one night, I texted him. "Hi. I don't know if this is still your number. But I wanted to say hello." He replied 15 minutes later. "Nora. I've been waiting 10 years for this. 3 days after that, we met in a park. Neutral ground. I guess deep down, I thought he'd look different, harsher somehow, like maybe the guy I remembered was just my childhood trying to paint him better than he was. But standing there in front of me, he looked exactly the same. Maybe just a little more gray around the edges. A little more worn down. We found a bench, grabbed some coffee, and it took until the second cup before I finally asked him about the message. He didn't flinch. Just gave his head a slow shake and said, "I didn't write it. I didn't send it. I never would've." He didn't plead with me. Didn't break down or get defensive. He just said he was sorry I ever believed it, and that he understood why I had. And the weirdest thing? I actually believed him. Not because he had evidence, he didn't. But because the second he said it, that loud alarm blaring inside my gut just quieted down. So I started digging. At first, I didn't even know what exactly I was trying to find. I wasn't some hacker or a tinfoil hat conspiracy nut. I was just a daughter who needed to know the truth. So I decided to do something real about it. I signed up for classes. Got certified. Earned my license as a private investigator. Yep, full-on PI mode. Not the trench coat and sunglasses kind, though. More like the boring, paperwork-heavy, totally legal kind. Digital forensics. Pulling records. Following metadata trails. Tracing bank accounts. And once I had those skills under my belt, I packed up and moved back home. Told my mom I'd lost my job. Said rent was killing me. Played the "I just need a little help getting back on my feet" card. She rolled her eyes but said I could crash in the laundry room. Perfect. While she kept me busy scrubbing dishes and pretending to contribute, I got to work. And eventually, I found it. It started with an old laptop, shoved way back behind a pile of sweaters. Password protected, but nothing I couldn't crack with my new skills. Inside, the files were a mess. Folders with lazy names like Legal 1 and Assets_Backup. And, no joke, one called Do_Not_Open. So of course, I opened it. And there it was. A draft of the message, the fake one. "If you take her, I'll kill you both," typed right into a Word doc. Saved 5 days before the date they claimed it had been sent. There were margin notes. Revisions. Even a comment bubble asking, "Too dramatic?" But that wasn't even the worst part. I dug deeper and found emails between her and Mark, from back when they were still just friends, talking about how to make Dad look unstable. How to protect the money. And speaking of money, she had always told everyone Dad made some disastrous investment during the divorce and blew half their assets. But hidden in another backup folder, because of course she backed everything up, I found scanned bank records. Wire transfers. Belize bank accounts. Fake shell companies, all conveniently set up under Mark's name. They stole everything. Framed my dad. Took the house, the business, custody. Left him with nothing but a wrecked reputation he didn't deserve. So yeah, I printed everything. Made copies. Handed one to my dad. That folder I slid across the table at brunch? That was just the souvenir. Fast forward. 3 nights after I walked out, there was a knock at my door. I peeked through the peephole. It was Dad. He didn't say much. Just stood there with this tired little smile and said, "I got the call. It's happening." The lawyer had filed everything. The case was officially reopened. We were moving to get the money back, the house back, and to clear his name for good. He stepped inside. I made us some tea. We sat down on the couch like it was just a normal Tuesday. After a minute, I asked, "Want to know how I found it all?" He nodded. So I told him. Not the whole story, at least not yet. But enough. When I finished, he looked at me and said, "You didn't have to do this." And I told him, "I didn't do it for you. I did it for me." Then the text started. First Nick. What's going on? Are you seriously blowing up the whole family over ancient history? This is way too far. You made her cry. Then from Mom. One line. You're not done. Don't think you're done. Real heartwarming, right? I didn't answer either of them. Because I knew exactly what was coming next. And they had no clue how much more I had ready to throw at them. Didn't take long. 2 days after Dad filed, the legal letter showed up. Certified mail. Thick envelope. The kind that makes the whole mailbox feel heavier. I wasn't there when it landed. But I sure heard about it. Apparently, Mom opened it in the kitchen, read the first page, and dropped her wine glass, full glass, middle of the day. The scream echoed through the whole house. Grant tried to act cool, which must have been pretty hard considering his name popped up right there on page 2. I can only imagine how fast he Googled, what happens when offshore accounts are traced. And Nick, sweet, clueless Nick, kept texting me like this was all just some emotional meltdown I was having. You don't have to do this. We can fix it. Fix what, exactly? The fake death threat? The stolen money? 20 years of treating me like a disposable spare part? Sorry, buddy. That bridge wasn't just burned, it was nuked. The court filings were airtight. Emails. Drafts. Bank records. All lined up in black and white. My receipts weren't just receipts anymore. They were a full forensic audit. The judge moved quick. Not out of spite, just because the evidence was so damn clear. Said it showed a long-standing pattern of deception that impacted custody, finances, and safety. In plain English? They lied. Over and over. On record. The ruling was brutal in the best way. Full restitution. Every penny they stole had to be paid back, with interest and penalties. They had to sell the house. Dump the cars. Cash out the investment accounts. Grant even tried to claim he had no idea what was going on. Said he trusted my mom with all the finances. Which might have been more believable if he hadn't literally signed the wire transfer forms. They sold the house in less than a month. At a big fat loss. Mom ended up crammed into a dingy 2-bedroom condo with a leaky faucet and walls thin enough to hear your neighbor sneeze. And for once, she didn't throw a housewarming party. Not that she was done being dramatic. About a week after the ruling came down, she decided to take one last desperate swing. She made a fake Facebook account, using my name. Same profile picture. Same bio. She even went as far as copying one of my old posts, word for word. Then she started posting these wild updates, claiming Dad had abused her, that I was mentally unstable, and that we had hacked into all her accounts. It was sad, honestly. And stupid. Because it only took the digital forensics guy about 15 minutes to trace the whole thing right back to her house. Same Wi-Fi network. Same browser history. Same laptop she used every morning to stream her Pilates videos. When the judge saw all that, he didn't even bother getting mad. He just looked at her like she was some kind of unsolvable math problem. Ms. Whitaker, he said, you fabricated a message, stole from your ex-husband, and now you're impersonating your own daughter online? She tried to muster up some tears. Didn't work. Not even Grant would look at her at that point. And Nick? He disappeared the minute the money dried up. No loyalty. No apology. Just a quiet little unfollow on Instagram and, I'm guessing, a frantic scramble to find a job that didn't require a background check or a shred of accountability. Never heard from him again. And honestly? Good riddance. Dad ended up buying a house. Not a mansion or anything flashy. Just a cozy little place with a real yard and a front porch that catches the afternoon sun. He called it peaceful. Which, if you ask me, is code for no more hearing my ex-wife screaming through the drywall. The day he got the keys, he invited me over. When I walked in, he handed me a mug of coffee and said, no big speech. Just, thanks. And honestly, that was more than enough. We sat there for a while, not talking much. But it wasn't that heavy, uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence where your body finally remembers it doesn't have to be braced for impact all the time. After a bit, he asked me what I was planning to do next. I told him I was gonna try living like I didn't have to rebuild myself from scratch anymore. He gave a slow nod and said, "Good plan." And that was that. About a week later, I got an email from Mom. Yep, an email. Subject line, "You'll understand one day." The body of the email was about what you'd expect. A lot of, "I did what I had to, and you betrayed your own family, and you were always ungrateful." She signed it, "Love, Mom." I didn't bother writing back. I just archived it, tossed it into a folder I labeled unsolicited fiction, and moved on. There wasn't any grand announcement. No TikTok confession. No viral essay about healing and closure. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted quiet. And that's exactly what I got. No more explaining myself. No more trying to justify why I always felt like a guest in my own family. Just silence. A kitchen with food that I actually wanted to eat. A living room that finally felt like it belonged to me. A dad who tells dumb jokes without using them as weapons. They used to call me a nobody. Said it straight to my face. Whispered it behind my back. Laughed about it at brunch. But here's the thing about nobodies. We notice. We remember. We learn exactly how broken systems work. And when we finally speak up, we don't shout. We bring receipts. We show up with documents. They said I didn't matter. Turns out, I was the only one who kept track of everything they thought would stay buried. Some days, I still wonder if I went too far. If maybe I should have kept my head down. Built my life quietly without dragging all their skeletons into the sunlight. Maybe it would have been easier. But then I think about how long I stayed silent. How much I let slide. How much they counted on me doing exactly that. And no. I don't regret it. Not one bit. But I do wonder sometimes. What about you? Would you have walked away? Or would you have slid the folder across the table? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you want to hear more stories like this one, go ahead and hit subscribe.